Hey, I'll bang my gavel and talk as loud as I can. We're mic'd on the TV, but not mic'd in person. So I guess everybody the rule tonight is talk as loud as you can project. So thanks everyone for being here. Really appreciate it. Excited to have our second East Nashville Advisory Committee meeting. You should have your agendas in front of you. I was going to kick it off with a couple comments, let Jerice make a couple comments, and then kind of go through the agenda. First, again, thanks everyone for coming out tonight, and most importantly, caring about our schools here in East Nashville. Obviously, that's why we're all here. Most of you know me. For those that don't, my name is Anthony Davis. I'm your Metro Council member for District 7, which is East Nashville, Inglewood, and a little bit of Madison. Very passionate about Metro schools. Actually a graduate of Harpeth Valley Elementary out in Bellevue, Head Middle, back when it was a zone school, and Martin Luther King Magnet. So very passionate, very humbled to get to work on this committee with you, and excited that I was asked to chair the task force. I feel like I've been one of the more active council members on education issues, very proud of that, and the Stratford cluster, which is what I represent, of course, has my full heart and attention since even prior to being elected in 2011. And I look forward to focusing on the Stratford and the Maplewood clusters with this group, and I've got lots to learn. Our purpose here, of course, is to find more successful strategies to better educate our kids. What we want to achieve out of this committee is basically to get a plan together for our strategy of pathways, feeder patterns, and transportation moving forward. In short, just in general, we want to have a plan for what we are doing with our schools here in East Nashville, an overall direction. While we will ultimately submit our findings to MNPS and the board for implementation, our intention is that our work will be heard and implemented to the extent that it makes sense. The district will be submitting their plan to the school board for ultimate approval. We expect that the work of our committee will be listened to and merged with district ideas and measures being made in the short term. I'd like to recognize my co-chair here, Jerice, and let her have a few comments, and then we'll go into our agenda.
Good afternoon. I'm Jerice Eden. Dr. Register gave me a nice introduction during the last meeting. If you were not here, I am from North Carolina. I moved here in June. However, I worked nearly 10 years in education in North Carolina, specifically with turnaround schools and the ability to transform low-performing schools and get them where they need to be. I'm excited to be in this community. I'm proud to be here. You guys have such a heart for your children, your community, for those around you. I'm excited to do this, and hopefully this committee will be a large part in transforming the schools here in East Nashville and ultimately giving the children here quality learning experience all around. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you. If you look at the agenda, we've got the short-term things I wanted to follow up on, but if you jumped ahead to number 3, I wanted to touch on that for a moment. What we wanted to do after we look into these short-term items was have a statement of need from each member of this committee, a very brief statement because there are a lot of us on this committee, but you can read the questions there, but basically just obviously we want to get everyone involved and get everyone's thoughts about what we're doing here. But the questions were, what do you sense the East Nashville schools need the most at this time? And that's particularly for individuals who are not in a school building or do not have children in the system. And then if you do have children, what is one concern within your neighborhood school that needs immediate attention? So that's more if you're representing Bailey or representing a school. If you're involved in one of the groups, then the first question. So if you can just think about that kind of as we're going on here, and again, we're going to go around the room after this and just keep it brief, but just to get a quick like one hitter of this is the utmost need for my school. You know, I'm at Inglewood, this is my utmost need, or I'm at Graymar, this is my need. So whatever the school is or whatever your group is, and sort of a statement of need. So we'll come back to that in a little bit. Now, short-term follow-up. Jay Sanders was going to present the results of the Englewood survey that he's been working on with the parents there, and so I was going to yield the floor to him and let him go. And I thought we'd do you presenting the findings, what the survey is, how you did it, and then we can take questions or have discussion from that.
We started the discussion at the PTO about 6 weeks ago. Another way we could get our voice heard, because we knew that at face value, it was a lot of me and one or two other people. And we wanted to make sure that everybody understood that the feelings that I was presenting, the desires and wants and concerns of our school matched what the rest of our parents, or some number of parents. So we decided to do a survey, and we did a twofold survey. We sent out survey home in the daily folders, and we added an online component in Google Forms or whatever. And so we gave parents the option of either ripping off the sheet and sending it back with their child, or actually filling out the survey online. Little incentive was to give the kids a day out of SSA to try to entice more surveys back quicker. It took a lot longer to get what we got, and we're not done. We still get surveys every day in our PTO box. And so this morning, I sent around, most everybody here has probably already seen results from somewhere or another. But we included, the overall question was, if you could say what Englewood becomes, because we know it's going to change, we assume it's going to change, what would you want? And we stuck as basic as we could with STEM, STEAM, PADEA, and charter. We included in our survey the current and what would be the most likely pathway for our kids to the next level. And sent the question home open, asked the parents to include their grade level and their teacher, and waited for the results. And today, I put out what we've gotten so far we've gotten almost 40% returns school-wide. And the numbers, starting with STEM, 20% of the student body, or the parents of the student body, chose STEM as their first choice. 52% chose STEAM, 7% chose charter, 13% chose PADEA, 3%, and I'm rounding, so STEAM or STEM was 3%, STEM or PADEA was 1%, 1.8%, almost 2%. And there was one return that said leave it as is, so less than 1% for just leave it alone. So that's the overall school numbers, and then we broke it down by grade level. And knowing that if KIP comes in, it'll probably be a built-in conversion. Although we didn't naturally focus on pre-K and K, those two grade levels became the grade levels that automatically gave us the best results. We had over 50% returns in pre-K, 55% in pre-K, 50% of the kindergartners returned the form. And pre-K, it was 26.1% for STEM, 39.1% for STEAM, 4.3% for charter, and 13% for PADEA. The kindergartners, it was 29.2 for STEM, 66.7 for STEAM, 0% for charter, 4.2% for Padea. Out of our grade levels, pre-K through 4, the third graders had the highest return for charter at 16.7, which actually was equal to their return for STEM at 16.7. The kindergartners actually said 66.7% for STEAM. And strangely enough, interestingly enough, the fourth graders, 21.4% said Padea, which for us, I mean, Padea would be an east pathway. And that's just seems very odd for everybody who looked at the numbers, but that's what they were. And we've gotten results on the easy ones. The ones that are left, the 55.1% of the remaining results are the parents who I think most people could attest in some of our schools. Those are the parents that we don't get to talk to regularly anyway.
So Jay, your sample size was then 45% of the population of parents at Inglewood. Okay.
Yeah. And we've pushed teachers because the teachers were getting a list of who was returning the survey, so the kids could get the SSA free day. Some of the teachers took initiative to try to contact the other ones, and they're trickling in. I mean, we get 1 or 2, maybe 4 a day, but I think we've probably reached critical mass of a large majority of our parents. The online portion of the survey, we actually got 10-ish% of the returns done online, which surprised us. I was not anticipating numbers that high, be they as they may, for online results.
Jay, what's the enrollment?
300. Yeah. So we got.
So it's a sample size of about 140.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, or do you want to open up questions, dialogue?
I mean, as far as I've that large grouping of the school-wide numbers, I kind of rounded off the numbers. So if anybody wants some more details, I can do that. But I'm okay with opening it out.
With the small percentage, when you put STEM or STEAM and then STEM or Padea, was it just an or option just to have that?
There were a significant number of parents that chose both.
Okay.
There was no one that chose all, and there was no one that chose none. Right. But there were that percentage who actually said, "I'll take that or that." And there were a few comments scattered throughout. People added their comments. Some of them were, everything from support our schools to, I grew up there and my kids need to go to Lytton.
Right. Cool. Okay.
What's the current pathway? Is that Bailey or is that Lytton?
Lytton. Yeah. Inglewood and Dan Mills flow into Lytton.
And Lytton, and there is no elementary STEM between us and Dan Mills. Neither one of us are STEM schools. And I've talked to Tracy Bruno and his about how they did the transition to STEM, and they're as close to a STEAM program as you could probably get without actually calling yourself a STEAM program. Their projects are off on the far end of the creative scale.
Well, I appreciate all your effort and stuff in those packets, and they're all constituents of mine, so I certainly want to hear from them, and the numbers.
Real brief observation.
Sure, yeah.
From those numbers is that one thing that jumped out to me is it sounds like 99% of parents there want to change. You know?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of important.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, I think we'll find with any of these schools on the bottom, I mean, we've got to make a lot of changes, you know, and that's.
But just to clarify, that no change wasn't an option on the form.
No, the person who put that was.
That was a write-in,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they'll leave as is.
We just
Yeah.
gave the four options.
Okay.
And people
Right.
opted in various and sundry ways to modify that to their needs.
Yeah.
Do we have specific data of how many people are zoned to Inglewood and not going?
The district does have that data, I believe. That was discussed at the parent meeting that we had. I don't remember the exact. We are losing students to Dan Mills, charters, even Rosebank. I think.
I know of the priority schools, we have one of the higher out-of-zone student populations, but that percentage versus the number leaving to go somewhere else, I don't know. I know somebody else, but
I think we
Are you still making efforts to get a greater return?
yes, we each week the teachers are their doors are kind of knocked on by the PTO to say it's, you know, you got some folks to call, please do, or tackle them when they're leaving the parking lot or whatever you can do.
Great. Any other questions or follow-up from that? Yeah, sure.
I am at Kirkpatrick, the kids' option school, and I did a survey. I was inspired by you when I left here last time, but I didn't necessarily do it on what they would like to see happen at the school, you know, the conversion. And so mine was more so on the school climate. I don't know if that would come later for what we were what's on the agenda or what
No, I mean, I think it's related. If you have some results, I mean, now would be a great time to hear that. With just a few minutes, I don't want to get too far off track, but yeah,
Okay,
sure.
So I basically just asked, I sent out a survey last week. I got a little bit over half. We have about 300, a little under like 330 students, 330 students. I had 165 back, and that was with me just pushing my incentive and doing a whole lot of driving. But I was listening to you where you said your observation was that the parents wanted some type of a change. And when I was going through my data, I was surprised where it was a question that said, what would you do to improve your school? And I had about 67 people that said, parents that said that they would do absolutely nothing. Kirkpatrick is fine the way it was. So that stood out to me because I said, wow, here it is, we're asking you, you know, what would you like to see change? And that's what they said. But what I got from that was pretty much what they said, what they would see, what they would like to see to improve their school is pretty much what we've just been saying. Just more services, as far as like behavior. They did touch on the transportation portion of it. A lot of parents said they would like to see busing, more funding. They wanted assistance in the classroom and more assistance in the schools, school security, and most of the parents said that they had positive relationships with their teachers. And so I just kind of looked at it from that standpoint, but it probably falls more on Deacon in that realm, but he did complete that.
No, thank you very much. And yeah, that's definitely helpful. And I'm glad you did the survey. You know, we certainly want to hear from you.
And it's kind of like he said, their study trip went in. I asked for them to come back Friday, and even today I was still receiving some. But I was pretty proud of the number that we got with such a quick turnaround.
And we had a similar vibe, I guess, at Inglewood, you know, when we did the big parent meeting. I mean, everyone is really proud of their school. They love their teachers. you know, they love their leadership. It's just, we've got to figure out how to get the results. I mean, we got to get the kids ready, you know, and if we're starting off behind, you know, it's just further behind, and we don't get the ACT scores, and, you know, then we're there. So that was a similar discussion there. You know, it's like a lot of parents do like their school, and, you know, are enjoying what's going on, and there's kids that are learning. You know, there's certainly not all bad. You know, it's just, but we've got to get the results that we need to get them ready for middle school. You know, that was a lot of the discussion around the Englewood when we did the first parent meeting. Cool. If there's no more comments on, and thank you for presenting that. The second thing I'd put on the agenda was the KIPP conversion strategy, regardless of what schools decided. We know the board had approved a KIPP school. It's going to be an elementary school in East Nashville. And I don't know, Jackson, if you had a couple questions. We had the new KIPP leader is actually here if we did have questions for her, or if we just wanted to kind of bat around how that conversion is going to happen around the committee, but I'd open up for that.
Yeah, I mean, my personal thought is I don't know that this committee will have any impact on which school it is. Maybe we will, but that decision's coming pretty soon. It sounded from last meeting like we might have more impact on how it's done. And we discussed two strategies last week, the phase conversion, which is where we might start with K1 and then add a grade level, which I think is what's already been approved. And then there is a more, I don't know, I guess a full conversion would be the opposite end of the spectrum, where KIPP would take over the entire school at once. And having some conversations, you know, we've had great success at Cameron with a phase conversion, but talking with people this week, I've heard that maybe that would create sort of a toxic environment, and that it wasn't a great culture during that conversion time. So I just wondered if maybe we could discuss as a committee what we thought about those two options, and would it be better to promote a phase conversion or a full conversion if we were going to take a stand on that?
So the two options would be a K1 and then continue a grade at a time, or a full takeover of the whole school. And either way, it would, you know, in any regard, a conversion is you take all the kids in the area that want to go to school. Cool.
And if to mirror what Jackson was saying, I've heard the same thing about the environment during the conversion. I actually don't even remember where I heard it, but somebody was like, you know, look into the Cameron thing, because that proved to be successful academically. But I've heard from at least two people that it was not a pleasant place to be during the process, or at least not, you know, more often than not. It was the competitive angle wasn't a good competition.
Could we as a committee advocate for a full conversion?
I'm here, you know, it's our committee, you know, we're East Nashville, we're here to, you know.
Principal, like
Miss Mickle at Englewood, I mean, when she came in, she was given the whole school.
That's right.
Yeah.
It seems like it's only fair that if you're given a whole school, you get a whole school. How is that? Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
Otherwise you can't compare.
right, fair discussion point, and, you know, I mean, I know there's different models, there's different ways of doing it. That's a great point, and I'd love to hear thoughts and reasons.
I'll say a word or two about that. We've had several conversations with Randy Dowell at KIPP, and what they look to, and of course what we would support too, is to do the change that we expect to be successful. And one of the factors is if you try to do whole school conversion, you really need to look at the size of the student enrollment. I think middle school versus elementary school is different too, but bottom line on that is a smaller school's got a better chance of being successful immediately with a whole school conversion. If you've got a larger school like a middle school, you know, if the enrollment's higher, and you do a grade level at the time, then that's a better chance of success. And so far as the Cameron conversion, there was a lot of controversy around that at the outset, and I think we learned a lot from that. After we got it going, the conversion was good, but there was a competitive issue between our upper grades and the lower grades, but we finished that, and when we finished up, both sides of that equation were successful. The schools were successful, and achievement went up. Brick Church, that first year where you got a year, and this was Achievement School District, and of course that was a more estranged relationship because we didn't have a cooperative relationship with the Achievement School District at that time. They took over Brick Church Middle, and that one was strained for the first year, but we got over that quicker, and the schools started working together, and we've seen success there too. So I think really it's trying to make a decision when we identify a school, what makes most sense for the quick success story when we get into transition. It could be a whole school conversion, it could be grade level at the time, and I think that remains to be determined as we negotiate with them on that.
But will the priority schools get the same treatment? When we bring in these new principals, will they get the same, do one grade level at a time or phase in conversion in those priority schools?
So if you're talking about a turnaround strategy, we're not talking about a jointly administered building. When we bring in a new leader for a school, then that person's the principal of the school. And you start a process with the entire school to implement the turnaround strategies.
Yeah, but we've already said that doing a whole school conversion is difficult, so why can't...
I don't consider a turnaround strategy to be a conversion. But we're talking about in a conversion, we're talking about two different entities managing two different parts of the same school. And when we talk about turnaround strategy, it is MNPS, regular school. It is a new leader coming in and starting a turnaround process for that school. It's not the same thing.
No, but should they get the same amount of time to show a turnaround? Like
That
3 to 4 years?
That doesn't make sense to me at all.
Well, so if you have a charter coming in to do a phased-in conversion, they're doing one grade level at a time, and you won't see results for that whole school for a longer period. If you have the priority schools principals coming in and doing a turnaround, it's going to take them longer to see those results because they're doing a whole school and not one grade level at a time.
Could theoretically, but yeah, but sorry.
The concept, I understand the concept. I understand that you guys are saying that in theory it's not, we don't want to say fair. It's not an equitable, idea that these people, but that's really the business. That's how it works, is that it may not end up being equal across the board. However, I do believe that because this school is going to be in our community, we can ask them to adjust to our culture. This is the culture of East Nashville. This is what we would like. This is what we would like from your school. And if you're going to be a part of our community, then this is what we need from you. And that's what we can do as a team here, is to say, if you're going to be the leader, this is what I need from you as a leader, if you're going to do this.
Right.
And ultimately work from there, that if you're going to be a part of our community, this is what you need to do to be a part of our community. If you're going to be named here, if we're going to support you, this is what has to happen. If not, we can't say that you'll have everybody's support on that. But we can ask them to fit into our culture and not come in and, like another example, somehow create a toxic culture. We can ask them to do that.
Jackson, do you have a comment, and then we'll...
Yeah, two comments. I mean, one thing, I think do we have default closure in the state for charters, or is that just in sort of the charter agreement? We do have default closure. So if a charter school ended up being a priority school, their charter would be revoked, they'd be closed. So we don't play by the same rules with charters and MMPS schools already. I mean, if one of these charters was a red dot, we wouldn't have a discussion about what to do. We'd have a discussion about what to do with the building, because the program would be gone. But did I think I heard you advocating for doing the full school conversion, just trying to take it back to that we, as opposed to a grade level at a time?
I am not an advocate for, well, I am an advocate for a full conversion. However, I do believe that parents should get an option and should get a choice of whether or not they want, I think that the school should offer, there is an option for your third grader to go here if they would like to go here. But I think parents should make a clear choice of whether or not I want my child to be to transition in just a couple of months, from June to August, from a traditional public school setting to a charter school setting, because that is a very different setting. It is. So even if your child is in third grade or second grade, or if your child is a fourth grader, you need to be clear as a parent about whether or not you want your child to be introduced to this school in this manner. Do you want them in 2 months to go from what they've known and what's going to be new? Because to go in the building and to think that the building is the same as it was where you came from last year would ultimately be a disservice to our children.
So I understand what you're saying, and I think, and I agree with you, but a little different approach. The way I've looked at it is the two things. One is that we ought to look to KIPP to convert a school that we think is very, very much a challenge to us to be successful by ourselves. It's a different approach, and that can be debated. But then the other thing is, if we convert X school to KIPP, and we'll decide that, just in the next few weeks, is that parents ought to be given a real choice of options. And that sort of plays into the transportation piece. If X school is going to be a KIPP school, then parents ought to have a real option with transportation to a zone school, another zone school, a magnet school, another charter school. And that's been a part of the conversation that we've had.
So can we have a parent maybe kind of give us your view, your perspective of how you would feel if your child had to ultimately transition from a traditional public school setting to a public charter school setting within a short period of time?
I have a question before.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. She did have a comment.
I'm a parent volunteer that has been in the school system for about 28 years since my children have been in school. And this is my first meeting, and I don't know if you all are talking about already converting the schools, or
No.
you're not? Okay. And I don't know what a STEM is. I don't know if somebody can explain the difference between the STEM and a STEAM, and I think I know a little bit about the charter, and I've heard of the PDAIA, but I'm not for sure exactly what the difference is in that.
Sure.
So if I can get a little bit more information, then I can.
Yeah, and a lot of that came from Jay's Inglewood survey. Those are, different pathways we've been discussing. We have several STEM schools in East Nashville. Stratford is a STEM program. It's science, technology, engineering, and math. And you throw the A in there for the arts to make sure that STEAM is having a good arts program as well. And so, Jay was kind of running through in his survey some of the options. The other pathway we already kind of have going. PDAIA is like I guess the best way to describe it is like a liberal arts college kind of pathway, well-rounded pathway. So I don't know if you have any, those were the two we were discussing, and then KIPP is a charter school, which is a publicly financed but privately run type of school.
Okay, and the STEAM is
STEAM is just
Same as
STEM, but with
STEM,
arts
yeah.
focus as well, yeah. And so, yeah, we were just, Jay had done a survey with the Inglewood parents to sort of see what they would like to see their school become. And that's kind of where that came up.
STEM and Padea are more focus areas, like what we focus on in instruction at the school. The charter would be, it's a different entity.
Okay. Let me say this because I've been in the school almost every day since the beginning of the school year.
Which school is that?
Jerry Baxter Middle School.
Okay.
Middle prep. Sorry. It's a school that we're working with. And like I said, I've been in the school system for 28 years. I'm able to be in the school system more because I'm not working a full-time job. And what I do is I go in and try to help the teachers in any way that I can to get order so that they can teach the children. And then if I get a chance to talk to the children, I do that as well. The thing that we're concerned with is the kids not being, they don't care at this point, whether they get a good grade or whether they get a bad grade. And trying to keep order in the class so that the teachers can teach them or either give them instructions is what we're working on. So I think that if we try to do this conversion or try to do something different, we need to work on right now getting order where we are now and what we're doing now, because they're not, I don't know. I talk to the kids, and I have befriended some of them, and they talk to me, and they come up and they hug me and whatever. And I give them a hug or whatever I need to do to help them through the day and try to talk with them. But we have had a lot of changes in trying to do whatever the new principals are trying to get order in the school, but they're not. I don't know. They're just not wanting to. They want to do what they want to do. They don't want to do what they need to do to progress forward.
And I think that is one of the reasons for this committee is that we're able to ultimately, hopefully, pilot some models that aren't STEAM or aren't STEM, aren't Padea, some models that says, listen, maybe we need to focus on something else. Maybe we need to start somewhere else and make this driven by something else other than science and technology and engineering. You see, maybe, and that may be something that you can help us with as a body that's in the building often to say, this may be something that we can model or pilot here.
I was going to say, you just sort of did your statement of need. If we were going to the next one, it sounds like your statement of need would be a very basic need, order in the school, and maybe and that's what we want these guys here tonight is okay. Jerry Baxter, the problem is order in the school first and foremost.
I think what would help with that too, if we had more parents involvement in the school. Because if the kids see the parents are involved with coming to the school and being concerned with the students, they will put more of an effort to doing what they need to do to progress forward.
Wonderful, and we're going to launch into that in a minute. Two things. I wanted to recognize Scott Davis, council member, represents a lot of the Maplewood cluster, and we're so happy to have him here, and glad to have you, sir.
Thank you. I'm a little biased towards the KIPP Academy cluster of schools, but to answer your question, I do have a daughter that's in a product of Metro Public Schools. She is currently in middle school here in Metro. I was raised in the Metro school system. Also myself, my mother has taught Metro schools for the last 15 years. Before that, she was a center director for a Head Start program. So she's always been in the field of educating children. But more importantly, the transition would be scary. My daughter went to Glenn. Also, after that, it was like, where do we transform her to? Where do we go? And when I was neighborhood chair at Cleveland Park, what happened was KIPP opened up, and it was kind of scary. But one thing you got there, and this for a statement, whatever you want for your school, because I know you were at Jerry Baxter at that meeting, whatever the Inglewood people want for their school, I will support it. Okay? I will support your council member right here. Bill, I personally love Kip, but like I always said, if you don't like spaghetti, that's fine. I like spaghetti. Kip has been a great service to the kids in my district. But it's scary. I'm not even going to lie to you. And it's a rough transition. I'm not even going to lie to you there. And we're on camera, so I'm definitely okay? But if I'm going to go through a transition, I'd rather go through it with Kip. I apologize to Lee and the rest of those, and our great schools. We have a great bunch of charter schools that are available and choices. But if I want to be hand in hand with somebody, I'd rather it be Kip Academy. Personally, that's just my personal, councilman all aside, because just my familiarity with them. Maybe as a suggestion, if it's up to your schools, up to your parents, and up to your councilman right here, whatever X is chosen by this board or by the good Dr. Registrar or his great staff, that you guys walk hand in hand together as partners instead of, in past and other states, I've seen not so good transactions. But, you got a great bunch of people with the care. I know everybody has different opinions because I'm very opinionated when it comes to my child. And I'm very involved in her public school. She's fortunate to go to Arts Magnet, I.G. Presswell, and she makes good grades because my wife is smart and she has her brain. But at the same time, she has my stubbornness, and I make sure she does her homework and that she sits down in that chair. It doesn't give the teacher any problems. So my suggestion would be keep meeting, keep getting your suggestions, and just walk hand in hand with them as partners and not as adversaries. And I just want to thank all of you for being here and serving your community for free. And appreciate everything. And I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to sit down.
Yeah. We're not getting paid for this meeting? Oh, man. We're getting something. Thank you, Scott, and great to have you here. Do we have any, do we have any other discussion on the conversion strategy? And is that,
I think that's one of the things that worries me when I think about my school. Just looking at how many parents talked about the fact that they like the school because it's so close. A lot of them don't have transportation. I guess that would fall into what Dr. Register said of making sure that they had that option of that transportation, because that is a huge transition. Going back to what she said, that is a problem that we have, just trying to motivate them to want to do better. And so I just worry about what happens to those parents that have no other choice to send their child to a full conversion school, and that underlying issue is still there.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about transportation options, absolutely, and that's a charge on us. And I'll echo, I would support a full conversion too, but again, it has to make sense. I know they look at the enrollment numbers. Inglewood, for example, is under-enrolled. I think Kirkpatrick's 125%. So I understand what Dr. Register is saying, and they look at the numbers. We want it to be successful. Whatever it is, it's got to work. My personal preference would be, take it on and let's get it done, and that's the school and that's what it is, but it's got to make sense.
Just a couple summarizing. Would it be fair to say that we have to respect the feasibility of the conversion? So as a recommendation from around this table, as much of the school as possible, but however that decision of feasibility is made. And then if it does not involve a whole school conversion, that whenever the language is written, that there be some sort of lessons learned from the Cameron conversion, for instance, of how to minimize hostilities and have a more collaborative, we've talked about how charter schools can be an incubator for, applying best practices, being in the same building, teachers right next door, communal professional development, or for instance, things like that would be, I would think, a great way to pilot that, if that is part of what we're talking about. And then to the third point of communication, just we know that time is of the essence as far as just notifying families, and I know you've kind of referred to the Pearl Cone redistricting as a way to reach families, but that clearly is of importance, that all the options and the change in expectations or options and choices be made very clear. And I don't know how, but I would see that this body as well has potential to reach families and things like that. Is that?
Yeah, and Dr. Richard had a couple comments.
Yeah, it's very important that we get an active decision from every parent, and we actually had one meeting about that today, and the process we can manage very well. Chris Weber, where's Chris Weber? Right here. There you are. Chris Weber is runs our student choice division and knows how to do that very well, and we will make sure that happens. I would like to ask Ms. Alexander to could you share the questions and the survey results with us? Not now, but just in writing or something, so we could. I'd like to have that for our information, for our record, if you would, please.
Sure.
Thanks.
I would like to move to the statement of needs. Hopefully everyone's got their statement written. We're going to go this way, counterclockwise around the room. I'll start, and then you're next. You're on deck. My hope, and again, hoping for a quick one and get everyone involved and active. My hope is that we can get East Nashville Schools locked in with direction and leadership in place, and pathways that make the most sense, both geographically and by curriculum.
My vision for East Nashville, just going off of not only my personal experiences in East Nashville schools, but also what I see every day. It is proven from what I see every day that when we invoke high expectations on students, they do meet those expectations. And I feel like teachers, I would like to see a revamping of teachers in these low performing schools. I would also like to see more research in why these students are low performing, why these students have lost motivation, because there is a reason why. And if we do not figure out and understand the culture of poverty and the way that it manifests itself into education, because it is the root of why a lot of these students are having struggles in schools, none of the changes that we make are ever going to be permanent until we address the most immediate needs of the culture of poverty and the manifestation of that in education.
That was the students.
Okay. Yeah.
That was the students. Yeah.
Well done. Way better than mine. Good job.
Well, as I stated, I would like to see more parent participation and communicating with the teachers in order to get order with their students for them to progress.
And yours is for if it's for a specific school too, we want to hear from you and what school you are and what you need. Sure.
I think I've addressed a lot of Inglewood's issues already, but Jerese actually brought up something that made me start thinking, is that we look for new ways of improving our schools. It seemed, the conversation seems to be very much, are you for the status quo or are you for charters? And that's not that's not a productive conversation. It's not the true conversation. And there are other ways of doing it. There's a lot of research that there are many different ways to successfully create a school environment. But the flip side of that, and the part of the status quo argument that I get most frustrated with, because I'm often said to want the status quo because I don't want charter, is there's a difference between throwing money at a problem and throwing money at a problem and seeing what happens with it. If it sticks on the wall, great, you did a good job. If it doesn't stick, don't just say it doesn't stick, figure out why. And there is a lot of research-based information out there that can play to that. So full buy-in from the district, from the parents, and from the administration and faculty, obviously. But looking at some alternative ways of doing it. It's not this way or that way. It's a spectrum, and I hope that we can explore the spectrum a lot more than the conversation has been so far. Not here necessarily, but in general.
Thanks.
Okay. I'm speaking as a parent and also on behalf of charter schools. I would like to see, I think one of the immediate needs for our community is more forums for information, specifically targeted at the hard-to-reach families. Because in reality, the Jay Sanders of the world are going to get a great education for their children no matter what school they're at. So I think it's super important that we have really developed strategies to get those families as much information as we can, specifically real numbers and real facts about how their schools are doing, information behind what does the A on my report card really mean. Does it mean my kid is just not making a scene in class, or is it really mean they're on grade level as far as what they can do? Also, I think that we need to have comparisons of schools to give people information on, okay, my kid's not just doing great, but how does it compare across the state, across the district, across the nation? What does it really mean? I think we need forums that clear up misconceptions about different kinds of schools, especially charter schools.
I think that we need all of our schools to be accountable to universally high expectations and outcomes for all students, and the belief that every child can learn as it infuses from the classroom, the teacher, all the way up to the administration, the district, and leaders.
Speaking as a parent at a school that is a great school. My kid goes to Dan Mills. We love it. But we do have a gap between underprivileged kids and, the neighborhood's gentrifying, kids whose parents are more involved. So my concern is definitely that we don't just shuffle kids. We actually truly address what the kids need and how to do that. And going back to what Jay said, let's collaborate, learn from each other, and give principals and staff at traditional zone schools the flexibility that the charters have to do really innovative things. And to deal with behavior, to deal with staff, to deal, like if a principal needs to fire a teacher that's just not working, to do different things like let that student have a cool down corner that, some schools have, like truly some innovative things, and get back to that spirit of collaboration, which is what charters were initially formed to do. And not have, we're not going to turn every school into a charter.
Right.
That's, where we have a majority traditional zone schools. So let's really work to get those and figure out, and I think wraparound services. We have to address the poverty problem.
Absolutely.
So.
I guess I'm speaking as a choice parent. My kids attend Laughlin, Rose Park, and MLK. Those schools are not wanting. But my wife volunteers in the classroom at Kirkpatrick twice a week, and I'm engaged in schools as a pencil partner. And I think what the schools need, especially the ones we're talking about, the red dots, the yellow dots, they need more parental and community involvement. They need more people in the classrooms helping out on a regular basis, and I think that's an easy way for us to get involved.
Before I make my statement, Ms. Alexander, I wanted to say something to you as a committee member. I'm very impressed that you took your position on this committee so seriously, that you went to your constituency and you provided information to the committee. I want you to look around this table just a moment, and I want you to let me tell you what I think of this table. It's about relationships. No matter where we come from or what we do, it's the relationships that we're trying to build here to make a better school system. Whether we're a council member or a parent or a principal or a teacher or a public representative, no matter what we are, it's about relationships. And the question is, what do East Nashville schools need most at this time? And I believe it's a feeling among all these constituencies that we're trying so very hard to do the best we can for every child. And if we can build that reservoir of goodwill among all these constituency groups, a lot of the problems that we're having will go away. Because if a parent believes that the school is doing the very best they can for the child, then everything else becomes secondary as a part of that process. So I hope this committee's reservoir of goodwill and the relationships that we build can be extended beyond this room into the school system. So that's what I would hope that we could do.
When I read this question, I think about what does Bailey need, and I'm looking at the word immediate attention. I agree with a lot of what's been said around the table with SEL needs and wraparound services. I mean, all of that is so important. Right now, we need answers. At our school, there's, with the newspaper this morning, there's so much uncertainty right now that it's really affecting our focus. What we need to be doing is doing our work, focusing on kids, doing everything we can to make sure that our kids succeed. And instead, there's this sense of, is Bailey going to shut down? Is it going to be repurposed? Is our principal going to be fired? These are questions that are keeping us from our just extraordinary important work. And so I think the sooner we get answers, the better it will be able to move forward. And no matter what those answers are, because, ultimately we all want what's best for children. That's why we're all here. So whatever that answer is, but just the uncertainty is we need answers.
Miriam Anderson, Jared Baxter, Principal Jared Baxter. Just looking at the question, I've kind of jotted down a few things. One was early reading initiatives. A lot of the students that we serve, their parents need assistance too, right? Mm-hmm. And so if the parents are needing assistance, then sometimes even in the early childhood stages, the kids aren't getting all the reading initiatives that they should. So if, as a cluster or a team, we agree that we don't stop until the kid is reading on or above level. We will continue to give them these interventions, because every kid doesn't have an IEP, but we can have an IAP, an individual academic plan for every child. And if we had something along those lines until they reach their goals, and make sure that we communicated with the parents about what those IAPs look like for every child, and just providing them, again, wraparound services are critical for the community that we serve. Just today we had a service program with student services helping parents just to learn how to communicate with the school. Because we can call and we can have a conversation, but to make sure that it's a two-way conversation, that they know how to communicate. So we're not just teaching the child, that's important, but we're having to teach a community. So we need to make sure that we're addressing those needs in that way.
Thank you.
Well, I feel like I could talk all night.
Please don't. No,
I've written so many notes down. I could reiterate everything everybody said. I think the poverty issue, until we address that, we're not going to get to any answers. I think that's absolutely correct. I think the community engagement is something that we've lost over the years. I think that's I think that's the district is to blame. I think parents are to blame. I think it's the product of society. I think it's just, I think we're kind of moving back in the right direction and re-engaging the schools, and I think that needs to happen. It's just, I think it's going to take some time. I think a lot of things that the district does under the veil of community is actually breaks down community. I think that we've focused too much on labeling schools, whether it's PADEA or Magnet or STEAM or STEM or whatever. I think we've spent so much time labeling schools when all I need is to know that I'm sending my kid to a good school. And I need to know at kindergarten that I can commit to high school. That's part of what we did in the process when we started with the Dan Mills dads and putting things together and tailgating football games and this kind of stuff, was to give people a buy-in so that they knew, I know at kindergarten or at first grade that my kid is going to graduate at this school. So I've got the next 12 years to invest in this school, to build those relationships. And we always talk about community, and I'm afraid that we muddy the word up a little bit. Community is tough. It's dirty. It's in the trenches. It's out there getting stuff done. But community is not. Community is the byproduct of relationships. And you were talking about relationships, and relationships are so important. Community is not the goal. Community is what happens. It's what happens because you have spent the time in the trenches and you spend the time building these relationships. So I'd like for us to be able to stop so much focus on labels and namings and the animosity of lotteries and all this stuff, because I've seen parents in tears at the playground because they didn't get their first choice, or they don't know what they're going to do because this school doesn't feed to this school, or what am I going to do when I get to middle school because now I got to fill out the paperwork again. And I think people need consistency. They need the answers, they need the consistency, and they need to know that if I start here and I go here, that I've got this amount of time to invest in the people, the school, the teachers, and the community around me, so that when we get to the end, we can all throw our hats in the air and say we did it.
Good point. Thank you.
I'm so upset with you because all of you all have taken what I wanted to say. What I would have to say, I'm a little bit different. I have multiple children in different areas, and I have 3 children at 3 different schools in East Nashville. And I am a product of East Nashville schools, and I have been a product of transitions in East Nashville schools. So this is all kind of familiar to me, and I kind of feel what my parents always said, history repeats itself. But what I really want from history of what I experienced in school to repeat itself is where it actually was teamwork. We had our parents, we had our teachers, we had our principals, and we also had our district, and they all worked together. We really do need collaborations. We really do not need for results to come out and just let us know that we're failing and there's no communication with that, because that also causes a ripple effect in the schools where people just like, oh, my school is failing, let me take my child. There should be that communication, there should be some marketing, and when those results are available, I feel like our school board representative should have a meeting some kind of way with each school that he or she represents and explain those results and explain what's happening. Even though we have those results saying that what our school has currently been dealing with, also bring up those current ideas. I'm not really oppose or yay or nay against any type of conversion or phasing in, but if we're going to collaborate, and especially as a community, because I do feel like our community needs to be, engaged, and it's a big deal to me because I am a younger parent and I see a lot of older relatives of the students in, but not really the parents and younger parents being involved. Where is that collaboration? We were talking about it for the turnaround, but where is that when a new school actually comes into existence in that community? I feel like the leaders should actually go out to the schools and there should be that unity there. And East Nashville is like a divide because we do have different community groups promoting East Nashville, but they all have their hidden agenda, and it's really causing conflict among the parents. And if we're really going to be united and really state our beliefs, then we really need to work together. And in some form or fashion, if we're not going to convert, I still feel like there should some type of way, if there's teacher interns or whatever, of that, if it's a charter or magnet, should be able to work with the traditional just a traditional public school and bring in their ideas, because turnaround is still going to happen continuously. It's not going to stop once we make this decision, because each day something is changing in our world. So we need to continue to stay abreast of what's going on and also meet the needs of our students, because you have to step out of your comfort zone and reach them and to grab them. And that's one of the reasons why I love Bailey, because it is a lot of younger staff there, and they all come from different backgrounds of life, and they actually have changed the momentum in that school tremendously within these past couple of years, and we need that to reflect all over.
I'm at Jerry Baxter. I've been there 6 years. And I've been thinking about really what it comes down to, I guess, is I think Chair Sharon in the beginning was like teacher quality. That's really, like, I feel like if I told a parent like to come to Jerry Baxter, I'd feel like I'm giving them a great education. I feel like if I had a son, I was teaching him, like I'd feel like he was getting what he needed. But I think across the building, like, would I feel comfortable with my child, with every one of the teachers in my building? And Miriam would agree, and she's doing a great job. It's her first year there, and she's recognized that gap too. And I think the schools that are the hardest need great teachers in every classroom. And that's something that we can control as a teacher. Like, I can't fix everything, but I can control how I'm teaching. Miriam can control how she's developing those teachers. And if every school, if you feel like, as a parent, you could walk into a school and feel comfortable that your teacher is teaching your child well and safe, and they're meeting their social emotional needs and their literacy needs and everything that comes with being a teacher, if those schools have good teachers, the results will come. And if they don't have the quality teachers, then the results will not come no matter what you call it. And I think that's why a lot of times the charter schools, they get a bad rap, but like, they've taken a lot of the best teachers at Jerry Baxter stuff in there. And our charter school's now doing really well. And it's really just because like they felt supported. They felt like, hey, come here, we're going to take care of you. We're going to be part of a community. And they've created that for themselves, which, like, and I haven't blamed anybody for leaving. Like, they're doing well, they're happy, and they still, they love our kids at Jerry Baxter still, but like, there's something missing to keep teachers in schools. Like, people think I'm crazy, like I've been there the longest, anybody, which doesn't make any sense. 6 years, that shouldn't be the longest tenured teacher. Like, that's a problem. And so what can we do to fix that bigger problem of retention, but also just attracting talent? Katie Corbeck's doing some stuff with that. And like there's trying to do some things, but I think it's a hard place to teach, but the kids need great teachers in every classroom. And that's the one thing that I can control.
Thank you for sharing. Great teachers. We've heard order. We've heard a lot about Jerry Baxter, and I learned a ton. So thank you.
I'm in Englewood, and I said, I think last meeting, that our immediate need would be wraparound services. And when I say that, it is because of high poverty. And when I say because of high poverty, it's not because I don't believe that my students can learn. I have some of the smartest kids at my school, but most of us would not survive in their situations. They are using all of their energy to survive. So that would be my main thing for Englewood, would be wraparound services. The thing I'd like to say about a turnaround, when you turn around a traditional school, you cannot do that from the top down, and elementaries are forced to do that because the accountability piece that's attached to it. Principals feel pressure to put their best teachers in the top 2 grades because that's where those are the scores that are posted in the paper. Those are the scores that the state deems whether you're making it or not. You cannot keep patching that without building from the bottom up. And traditional elementary schools have to be granted. I mean, we've got enough assessments, good Lord. We can look at those lower grades and see that, yes, they are starting at the bottom and they are building a great foundation so that when they get to 3rd grade, they can pass the whatever assessment that's put in the paper.
My piggybacks off of pretty much what everyone said. My vision would be for us to really sit down, really focus on what the issues are, and really tackle that, because I feel like for so long we've put Band-Aids on the issues that are taking place in East Nashville, and now we've come to this big issue, and it's like, oh my goodness, we need a quick fix and we gotta solve it, and I don't want to see us just try to give it another quick fix and the issue is still at hand. And I think that's my biggest issue. I thought about our last meeting last week. I had a child that came in. He said, Miss Alexander, somebody broke in my house. while I was sleeping last night, and I was so scared, and he went through all of that, and I'm saying now I have to teach this child fractions, and he's saying, Miss Alexander, could you look outside the window, because he lives across the street. Miss Alexander, could you look outside the window to see if my mama's car is there so I can make sure that she's safe? And I'm thinking I have to teach him fractions so that he can pass the test, And I just feel like until we deal with that and we get those wraparound services and we get those assistants that we need, it's not gonna matter. That's just my vision.
Can I just ask, because I know Community Schools is in Kirkpatrick, and I'm curious, has that been working?
It is working. The problem is we have a large number of children that have issues, and we only have so many bodies and so many hands. So my guidance counselor actually came to see him, to check on him later that day, but I think that is the issue, that we have so many issues at our school, and there's not enough bodies.
We have Centerstone at Englewood, and they do a wonderful job with the students that they do see, but again, it's such a huge volume that they just can't get to everybody that we need them to get to.
I'm new to...
Your last, yeah.
I'm new to East Nashville, but I'm not new to education. And in much of my turnaround years, I've noticed that positive school climate is the big issue. If teachers don't want to be there, that rubs off on students. And if students realize you don't really like me or you don't want to teach me, that is a problem. They don't want to learn from you either. And I think first, positive school climate, I will say that being here in East Nashville for the last few months, I've noticed that my daughter goes to Warner. And Warner has somehow developed their own system. And I'm just going to be honest. They've created some social emotional pathway or model that I can't even explain. They have so many community feeders into that school. We have community in schools feeding, we have parents. I've gone to field trips and had 5 parents sitting in the back holding babies. They're in 4th grade. And because somebody thinks that you cannot sit still and you shouldn't have come to this field trip, that is not true. We're going to make sure you come to this field trip because you're going to see this college that's right down the street from your house that you can attend if you just stay the course. I think that social emotional curriculum is so important. Now, does it take 10 of us parents to be there? Yes, we kind of are like free staffing. We man the open the door button while a Metro staff member deals with an issue. We change clothes, it's okay. It's okay if a child comes in with shorts and it was 32 degrees and snowing. We make our way to our closet that we filled up with clothes and we pull them out. There's no need to call a parent. Can we call you if it happens 10 times? Sure. But I think social emotional curriculum is important. It is driving these children. I'm looking at Warner's data and it's like 11% gain. How does that happen? It happens because they have loving staff members in that building that are dealing with these children's social emotional needs before they ever touch academics, before they even talk about a fraction or a verb. They are dealing with these children where they are. We've had parents run to houses to pick up field trip forms. You are going. You are going. We're going to make sure you go. And I think if we can decide that we're going to be consistent and be committed. I have to be committed to Warner. I came here, I'm telling you guys, I came here, I had no idea what to choose. I just knew that I had some parents going, ooh, are you sure? Are you positive? I'm thinking, well, tell me, what is it? I'm not going to tell you, you just find out on your own. I had to be committed to that. I'm going to be right here and my 4-year-old is going to be right here. That's how it's gonna work. Because I have to be committed to this. I have to be honest and say that they need me. I'm gonna have to be committed, and there's gonna have to be consistency. These children, they need the leaders that they've had since kindergarten. Because that's really who they're there to impress. They're saying, I'm coming here for my principal. I'm coming here because she's looking for me. She wants me to be here. She told me if I can just make it this week, then something great is gonna happen on Friday. That has nothing to do with academics. That is all social emotional. And we ultimately have to push that here. That is the big need, I feel. That's what we need. We need that social emotional portion that builds community. It really does. And I mean community not like the people, but community like the verb, like the feeling. The feeling that we are all here for you. And if you need me, I'm just a parent. I don't have a badge, and I don't get a check. I'm just a parent, but if you need me, I'm here. And that's really, I feel like that's really what we need, and I think we can do it.
So it's sort of a tie into all the schools. It's the social emotional support.
Yeah.
All our struggling schools. We've got about 15 minutes, and that was awesome. Like, I learned a ton, and I appreciate everyone's comments. I think we're going to spend the bulk of the next meeting on number 4, just going into the more long-term discussion. I just wanted to do a call to ideas for B, the turnaround strategies, because I feel like that's what we've maybe touched on the most tonight. I mean, I put like principal autonomy. A lot of what I've heard is sort of, some ideas like kind of trying to do what some of the charter schools do in the regular schools, give the principal more freedom, get the teachers we need. Wraparound services, a full combination, a full turnaround strategy. I know the district is working on this, and it's something that they really want to do, and they want to turn these schools around. So I'm just throwing out a call to ideas and discussion on turnaround strategies. Or questions we could have more questions for Dr. Register, or just more bad things around the group.
Can I say this being at Jared Baxter, hired like May 15th and haven't started school running. Being in a turnaround school is not a situation where, you look at the culture first, because there's a body of evidence and research that says focus on culture first and then academics. So when you're in a turnaround situation in turnaround school, you don't have that option. There's that sense of urgency and getting the word out and making sure that the teachers are on board, that the students are on board, and that they understand, because they do have those SEL issues that you have to deal with, but still you do not want that to impact their future, because there's a future, ahead of them. So you have to conquer both culture, climate, and academics. You cannot do one, I'm just going to work on this right now, this year. It's not an option. And so it's immediate, it's an immediate response, and it's having everyone call to action. If you're in a turnaround situation, it's not that, let's just do that. It's not that.
Miss, are you able to, you're a principal, right, at Jerry Baxter, are you able to get the teachers that you want to get in the building? Are you able to run the school the way you want to run the school?
I'll say yes. 2 reasons why. We have a focus on, when I came in, I had to look at the data to see who's in the building, what are the needs, to do a need assessment. I surveyed the teachers to find out what their needs were. And then coupled with that, we have ongoing PD. It's not something that I can say, well, we'll work on it next year. So while we have Excel, and I talked about this a little last time, but while students are getting social emotional learning and that type of PD, teachers are getting it during the day. So we've done thinking map training. That's something that's offered through the district. We've had, and I'm losing it, PSYOP training. Just what literacy skills can you bring into the classroom that will really push the students forward? And so we're conquering just what the teacher said the needs are, but what also matches the data. Because literacy is an issue at Jerry Baxter. So the teachers need some strategies to move us forward in that area. So giving the teachers and the students opportunities to address that.
Are you able to get a literacy director? Are you able to fluctuate a staff member and have an extra literacy person on?
So, we had the option, Dr. Rachel talked about this, to do like a needs assessment. And one of the things that I said I needed was 2 Read 180 teachers. And I have one, and we're looking for the second one. And, the pool is not, deep for that. So we're addressing that. So I'm trying to get the Read 180 teacher, but then, with evaluations and informal evaluations, we do have teachers, as Jared said, that we are having to grow them, into where they should be. And it may be that Jerry Baxter is not the place where they need to be, next year, because my goal is that you should be a 4 or 5 teacher if you're in a turnaround school. There's a plan for a 1 or 2 teacher, but if you're a 3, then you're kind of skating. You need to be a 4 or 5 teacher if you're going to work with students who have needs, because those teachers do have the support and they do know how to work with students who need SEL, but they also understand the academic rigor that needs to be there. And so we've been in session, 15 weeks? And I've identified the teachers that still need the support to figure out if Baxter is where they need to be or not.
Just a real quick comment. We really have 2 groups of schools that are priority schools, those that have been priority schools for 2 years now. This is the 3rd year. And those newly identified schools, and Jerry Baxter is one of those schools that's not had SIG grant funding. The group, essentially the new schools are applying planning grants for school improvement grants now, and it's a significant amount of money. The schools that are going into the 3rd year have had those grant funds for 2 years before this one and have them now. So you find a little bit of variation in how much money's been going into these schools because based on when they were first identified.
And I'll say at Bailey, we got one of those SIG grants, and it has been in the innovation zone. Our principal's had a lot of autonomy, and it has made a huge difference. He's been able to shuffle positions around. We have a teacher leadership model that is unbelievable. In every classroom in our building, we have up to 3 adults in every single classroom because of that creative way of shuffling that money around. And we have seen huge gains, based on that. I mean, we're not out of priority, but we have seen major gains.
Yes.
Point of Vista, they have 2 teachers in every classroom. It works really well, but I also want to tie back to what Jared said. It takes a great teacher in every room, and that goes with what Miriam said. That's the 4s and the 5s, and the 3s are a good teacher. But when we're talking about these priority schools, these target schools, even the bottom 25%, we really need a great teacher in every room in order to make this change. And what Ms. Paget was saying with, you can't have the great teachers in 3rd and 4th grade so that we test well and pull our scores up, and the good teachers in K through 2 so they're getting behind grade level on reading before they get to 3rd grade. We have to have...
The math doesn't work.
We have to have a great teacher in every room.
Numbers don't work.
I know you're doing a lot of work to get more great teachers here, and we don't have exactly a huge waiting list of them, but I would like to see increased autonomy to make sure there's a 4 or 5 in every room, and that we're not keeping 3s in the building if we can get 4s and 5s in.
But we also need to address what happens once they're in the building. So I came into Bailey at a 5, and because of my position, then my score is based on the group as a whole. So then that brings me down. I mean, I'm still a 4, but we have to consider, we have to weigh that and figure out a system to keep these teachers here, because if they realize, oh my gosh, by transferring to this school, I'm going to be at risk for, not doing well in my team evaluation, it's a concern.
Absolutely.
Can I bounce off of that? We also need to make sure that people, I'm sorry, did I jump?
You and then we'll get her. Yeah.
my kid is going to do fine because I'm there. And I think people need to realize too that just because it's a priority school doesn't mean that if I send my kids there, they're going to fail. I'm still going to be there. And I know that we give options and that's all great, but you have the choice to go right here. You can do that. Another thing I want to touch on is I think that we need to make sure that we maintain civility in the conversation. And there are a number of differences. I have my thoughts, and I know other people have their thoughts, and I'll call Catherine out. Can I call you out? So I know Catherine you live next door to Dan Mills, and we've talked at the playground and friends with friends, and the whole conversation in schools never came up because we were just at the playground chatting, And if you're at the Y on the weekends, you're just a parent. So the fact that we all live around these schools and in these communities together means that we have to be able to have civil conversations because the kids are watching us. Mm-hmm. The kids are reading the papers. They're following tweets. Mm-hmm. I know kids who are on Instagram and they're all over the place. So they know this stuff is happening. So we just have to be conscious of that as well. I think the media can help us a lot too. I think every time there's so many things happen. I'll talk from Stratford. There's so many things happening at Stratford, but the media shows up when somebody gets in trouble. Mm-hmm. And so we're constantly dealing with perception issues. And if you walked into Stratford, you would be amazed at what was happening there. But if you just watched the news, you wouldn't walk into Stratford.
Right. Absolutely. We are doing our best to change that. We've got such momentum there, and it's just been awesome. And thanks to, I have to brag on the community PTO because especially in the North Stratford cluster area, and really the whole Stratford cluster, but in the North Stratford cluster, it's just been an amazing asset. We need to replicate that in the Maplewood cluster and in all four corners of our little sections here. Cherish, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, one thing that I didn't get a chance to say when I was giving my answer to my question is one thing that I think we need to focus more on is not only the quantity of choices that we're providing, but the quality of it. Because we can have a bunch of different choices, as I feel like we do now, but are they quality choices? And for me, I graduated from East Literature, I guess it's East Nashville Magnet now, and still was not prepared at all to go to college, still was behind in math and literacy, still had teachers who did not care, who did not push me. Expectation was very low. And this is a school that is magnet. And so if we're gonna have a conversation about having different choices and different options for parents and families and for students, we need to make sure these choices are quality choices. And whatever that's gonna look like is what it needs to look like. Because where we get muddy is where we start to think about what the name of the school is gonna be. And that does not matter. And that's when everybody else's selfish and personal views get into the mix when it's not about that. It's about these students. Because I was one of those students. And at the end of the day, I was still not prepared. After everybody got done talking, I was still not prepared. And so the focus needs to be on the quality, and it needs to be looking at what is working and implementing that, period, no matter what it looks like.
Very great point. We have a lot of schools. We've all seen the map. The quantity's there. We got to make it a quality seat. And I think the district has been saying that they want a quality choice for every kid. I think we've got the quantity right. You're right. We need every school to be quality.
I'm a nurse, so there's a parent, but I'm a psychiatric nurse. So you wouldn't put me in a critical care unit because I would probably kill that patient. Maybe you keep him off bullets, so just warning you. But one thing we do in nursing is that we staff for acuity. On our acute unit, where we have lots of psychotic patients, you have more nurses. You have, you have different patients. Those patients can still get better. You're not saying, well, those patients are, hopeless. No, it's just going to take different strategies to get them where they go. And so that's what I feel like could possibly come in and work in education, too, is that, giving these different, more different resources in different areas for different kids, even within a school. Even at Dan Mills, we have great, but we need to do different things for different kids.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, and then any final comments, we'll start to wrap up.
I just wanted to talk about the turnout strategies. We are currently going through the Time Collaborative process. We're trying to
What is
see
that?
the time collaborative.
Is that a certain type of turnaround strategy?
It is basically trying to revamp, like you talked about, the principals have autonomy and just trying to revamp the way our school day looks so that it's more beneficial for our children. And I think at first I was a little leery, but as I got to know more about it and understand it more, I was feeling like, okay, this is what we need per se, because I think about my classroom and I say, well, I take a non-traditional approach in my room, so why is it that we don't take a non-traditional approach as a school as a whole? I'm just one person in one room. And so that was just one of the strategies I just wanted to make you aware of that we're going through right now at Kirkpatrick.
Awesome. Yes.
I believe that I heard a proposal by the Martha O'Brien Center a few years ago for Kirkpatrick, and I was curious if that is going to be reconsidered in this process of turnaround.
I think, yeah, that.
Martha O'Brien is doing Explore this year.
Yes, but I believe it was for a district-run, like,
it won't be
at Kirkpatrick, not a charter school, an actual turnaround strategy
They
for
did come and
Kirkpatrick.
speak to us maybe 2 years ago about that, and I haven't heard anything else since.
I think, once the KIP being the low-hanging fruit of what's being decided by the district they've mentioned the next couple weeks, then, we can certainly discuss that more. I haven't heard anything about it lately. I do know they have been approved for something, so.
So as Councilman closes, I'd like for you to take away a little homework to come back for our working meeting, the next meeting, and have some strategies that you feel like may be useful in implementing and ultimately presenting to the district for your school or for another school, whatever the case may be.
Or the overall East Nashville schools, like basically item number 4.
Yes.
The larger scale ideas. Is that what you're saying?
And maybe come back with a few ideas so that we can jump right in. And you don't have to take a lot of time to gather your thoughts and think about it. You kind of have it ready, even if it's the day before, a few hours before. You don't have to start tonight, but get some ideas, strategies together for that.
Sounds a lot like homework. So I just want to thank everybody. Reminder, our next meetings are December 3rd and the 17th. Do we like the Foster Street better than East Park? Is that a...
Warmer.
Any nays? Any nays in that? Okay. I feel like it's really comfortable here. So again, December 3rd and the 17th. Thanks everyone for your time, and this was really productive, and I really appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Why did I not down your name? Did I really?